Welcome to a new JogoNet video interview. And today we'll be focusing on one of the major effects that the COVID pandemic has brought to the gaming industry, which is the eSports industry and eSports betting especially boom. So for that, and with that aim, we'll be speaking with Pavol. He's the CEO and co-founder of RTSmunity, which is a data science company and market maker, especially focused on analyzing, researching, and predicting esports matches. So welcome, Pavol. Thank you for having us today. I think we can start by having your own view based on all this data you're working with. What have you learned so far from the effects that the pandemic has brought to the industry, to the esports industry, and what are the major significant trends and changes that you have seen so far?
Hello, everybody. Regarding the outbreak situation, we observed that a part of the punters, like the traditional punters, moved to esports betting, especially on the Betfair exchange. Match volume increased over 10 times, which was great for us as we are the liquidity provider on this exchange. Also, we observed the higher increase of volume through our B2C customers. And the reason is that most of the matches were postponed, and punters just wanted to play some games, and esports was only one sport which was able to quickly adapt on the new conditions. All major leagues like LCK, LPL were able to go online from offline events, and this helped definitely to make a great promotion for esports.
Okay. What can we expect in terms of maybe acquisitions between companies? I mean, we have two esports betting companies that are going public, Esports Entertainment Group and Lackbox soon. Maybe what can we see from now on about in these areas now, right? Merger, acquisitions, partnerships with media companies. What is your outlooks for this?
Regarding the two mentioned companies, probably the reason why they go public is that they need some funding for their expansion. I think that both companies plans to go listed on the Toronto exchange. Like, the question is, what is the reason behind this? Because Toronto exchange is not like top exchange, so probably like maybe both companies struggle with a significant revenue because the conditions or requirements for going listed on this exchange is not so strict, like compared with other exchanges like Nasdaq, for example. Mm-hmm. So maybe this is the reason. Regarding Lookbox, that's very interesting, because if you check their history, they started with Bitcoin ICO. They raised a lot of money, and now they are going listed again, but through Toronto exchange. So in my opinion, maybe they have some plan, maybe they just struggle with some reasonable revenue. Regarding the acquisitions, I think that a few big betting companies just missed the trend with esports. So it means that they consider esports as the traditional sports. So they didn't invest some money to promote esports for millennials and Gen Z. And I think that the traditional esports is just not sufficient to be competitive across the market. But still, I think that what is missing on the esports market is that even esport dedicated betting companies. Their business is based on the traditional approach. So, for example, if you check the traditional, if you check the esports betting sites, dedicated betting sites, it's very, let's say, similar to traditional sites. Maybe they have some stream like from the Twitch, maybe they have some data, maybe they have some logo of the teams, but this is not, let's say, sufficient which attract new punters, like new esports punters, because esports punters, they want something new, something different. So I think that it's still, we observe that there is no strict, or there is no a big game changer on the betting esports market. Maybe a few betting companies, traditional betting companies, will be considered to make some acquisition with some modern esports betting website. Let's see what comes with the future, but from our perspective, I think that there is still a huge space for innovation on the esports betting market.
Okay. Lackbox CEO has recently spoken with us in an interview. He said that one of the biggest trends in this industry will be that esports will take over from traditional sports in terms of user acquisition for traditional gambling companies. Would you agree with this?
Like esports has definitely increasing trend, but we need to understand that we are still on the gambling market. And for example, regarding the tennis, which is currently the king of in-play betting, and it's very easy to understand for the traditional punters. It will be, let's say, difficult for esports to compete against these traditional sports, because you need to realize that most of the punters understand traditional sports like football, ice hockey, tennis. These sports are very simple for understanding, comparing with Dota 2, for example. And still, this base of the customer is huge. But in case that esports should be the best acquisition product, I expect the same. I don't expect that it will be like the huge takeover. But if I should select as a sportsbook manager, which is the best acquisition product, especially for a new customers, like millennial customers, esports is the option number one.
Okay, so and what should this new sportsbook entering the esports betting industry? What should they have? What should they put first in their strategies in order to be a competitive offering?
That's the good question. As mentioned at the beginning, like the current approach is the similar like for the traditional sports. Even if you add on your web page some additional additional features like stream, live scores, maybe more colors, or maybe to make your web page more interactive. But from our perspective, this is not still enough. So we recently conducted market research on the Reddit about what esports punters really want, and the feedback was very interesting. The main feedback was that what missing on the sports booking market is a transparency. Transparency means that if you want to place a bet, you don't know almost anything about your bet. So you only see the odds, and then you just assign a bet and you don't know anything. And even worse, you don't know how much money you can place if you are not limited, if you are not discriminated comparing with the other punters. And this is what really, let's say, missing on the esports betting punters, because millennials are different customers base than like the traditional punters. So from our perspective, if sportsbook want to be competitive, then they need to add a transparent attributes on their web pages.
So, and can you delve a little further into the match fixing? I mean, how can data be used to tackle the, I mean, there is a lot of discussion around the esports betting industry in particular on this issue. So what's the approach for that, and what are the resources, technology resources that can be used from now on?
Mm-hmm. Like what we observed, that match fixing in esports is not bigger than in the traditional sports. So the level of the match fixing is the similar like across the lower the tennis tournament, like ETF tournaments. But regarding, it depends what's your strategy. If you are the entertainment sports book platform, then you don't need to care too much about the match fixing, because your customer base is like more you have like the more gamblers than some smart punters. So you don't need to care too much about the match fixing. But if you are like the more competitive platform, then you need to definitely care about this, because then you lose a lot of money. For example, our company, because we provide trading services and odds to a sportsbook platform for esports, and also we are the market maker for Betfair Exchange. So this issue is handled in our company very well, because we know, especially on the Betfair Exchange, if we are not able to reveal almost immediately in real time the match fixing issue, we can lose even our weekly profit. So we have some algorithms which we use for revealing suspicious let's say movements or decisions during the esports games.
Right. Let's talk about the different jurisdictions. Well, we have been covering what's going on in the US with sports betting opening in different states. So I would like your view on the US, how the esports will be unfolding there, and if you can compare it with other jurisdictions such as Europe, Asia, or any other regions that you like to mention in terms of market, in terms of profit margins, any aspect that you like to take?
I think that sports betting in the US is very rigid. Like if you even open a website from gambling US commissions, like New Jersey commissions, Nevada commissions, like their web pages are like from 90s. Yes, and if you ask them about some requirement, it takes even ages to get some consistent answer. So I think that just the environment is difficult in the US. The question is why? Yes, but I think that the environment is very rigid, and it definitely takes time to make at least this environment which we observe in the Europe.
Okay. What about the type of betting? Do you have the ratio of pre-match and live betting in esports, and another consideration that the sportsbook would like to or should pay attention to, or could be attracted to in this sense?
Mm-hmm. Definitely, we have numbers from Betfair Exchange and from our customers, and ratio is 90 to 10 in favor of in-play betting, which is, let's say, huge difference, almost very huge difference comparing with the traditional sports, but this ratio is, let's say, 65 to 35% in favor of live betting. The reason is simple. Pre-match is boring for millennials and Gen Z, and the esports punters, they are also enthusiastic in esports. They want to watch stream, and they like to place the bet on in-play betting events. If you want to attract more in-play volume, you just need to make a nice offer. So if you want to be competitive, then definitely you need to add some interesting market. Like, for example, we offer match duration, in-play match duration. So it means when the game finish or how many kills happen during the game. So this is the markets which are which intensifies esports punters to place a bet.
Right. What about the let's say the problem gambling? I mean, I'm interested in knowing, in having your view on what will happen with the new players that discover esports these days. What will happen when more traditional sports keep returning, and also link that to the problem gambling issue that is currently boosted by the lockdown all around the world.
I think that there are two different issues. Okay, one thing, what's happened once the traditional sports return. What we already observe is that the natural liquidity is higher than before the pandemic situation. Yes, it's lower definitely than during the last 3 months, where most of the leagues were just cancelled or postponed. But the natural liquidity after outbreak is higher, definitely higher. So we even observe 3 times higher volume than before the crisis. Regarding the issue with online tournaments, because this is the, let's say, a real issue, because almost all tournaments, all tournaments are online now, and even new tournaments started to cover some matches. So we observe some issue on the game league side, like with match fixing, especially in Asia with Dota 2 tournaments, and also with some issue with the games, because as the admins of these tournaments are not always able to handle with a no delay stream. Some players just watch no delayed stream, and they can take the advantage, because for example in Counter-Strike they know where their counter players are, and they can make a different strategies.
Right. Well, we can finish off with some of your outlooks about the long-term changes in the esports industry after we come out of this crisis, landmark changes that you see that will last, and what's the room for rising technologies such as blockchain, more big data, AI. I mean, for the long term. What is your view on this?
Like regarding the esports, I think that most of the companies on the betting market realize that if you want to be successful or deliver the good product for esports, you need to really have a great team of quant analysts. So for example, in tennis, where you have only a couple of data from the game, like some average analysts are enough to make a good odds. But in esports, where you have, let's say, hundreds of variables almost every second, you need to have the guys who are very, let's say, strong in machine learning and let's say new statistical techniques. And this is, let's say, our edge of our company, that we hire very strong people in this area. And the future of this is that with this technique, you can be very, ahead comparing with the rest of the market, because this approach, like as you mentioned, artificial intelligence or some deep learning approach, can significantly improve your estimation of the fair prices or odds.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time and all the insights. And I hope I see you in future interview opportunities about this topic that will unfold pretty much after we come out of this. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well for the interview.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.